Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another one of my daily Yu-Gi-Oh videos. So today guys, I got a little bit something different for you guys. Now, I know I really very recently just did another profile on this, but I've had a few major updates and I didn't want to leave you guys in the dark with what I've been doing with the deck. I incorporated the Kaiju engine into the deck without Fireball. Now this is a little bit hard to actually resolve. I guess you could say it's kind of hard to get the Kaiju out, but at the same time it's very usable. You do slow down some of your plays, so basically you can kind of trade out the Ningirsu plays with the Kaiju plays, which I think is a little bit better going against this current meta because it's more of a going first kind of thing. You can trade out the Kaiju engine with some other stuff in the side deck, but I decided for this video to leave out the side deck and just bring you this Kaiju variant without Fireball. So let's get right into the profile. Okay guys, so let's get right into the first card. Now the first card in the deck is our World Legacy World Chalice. This has three very major effects that just make this deck go turbo when it comes to spamming out monsters. But the first effect is more of a defensive effect where it contributes itself to send a monster that was just special summoned from the extra deck to the graveyard. He also has the main effect that most people do use, which is when he's normal summoned or set, you can, if he's sent to the graveyard after he's normal summoned or set, then you can special summon 2 World Chalice names from your deck. Really, really amazing effect right there. He's also got his last effect where you can banish him from the graveyard to search out another one of him or any of the spell traps we currently have, or the new card that is coming out, which is absolutely horrible and you definitely are not going to run that card. But that's the first card in the archetype. Okay, so next up we do have our Stratos of the deck, Lee, the World Chalice Fairy. Now, more of the combos that go along with this deck is use Lee to search him, or use him to search Lee. And if you do use him to search Lee, you get to add a monster from your deck to your hand. If you use Lee to search him, then you can add the Lee back to hand once it's in the graveyard. So it can go either way. You get more pluses off of starting with him, but Lee is also really good because she has a recursion effect where she can send one monster from your hand or field to grave to return her to your hand so that you have a World Chalice name to make all of your World Chalice monsters float effects be able to resolve. Next up guys, we have another, or actually the last effect monster in the World Chalice archetype currently. That is our hand trap of the deck, or an archetype based hand trap, which sort of is archetype based. Now this is a hand trap that protects your linked monsters. Emphasize on that or id at the end. It doesn't protect your link monsters, but the ones that link monsters point to. And it's a hand trap effect, and it negates the effects that target them. It's pretty nice. But that's not all. It also has a recursion effect for vanillas by banishing itself from the graveyard. Probably one of the biggest changes in the deck is I actually dropped the 2 backend, and now we're only running Triple Chosen. I just feel like backend didn't really have a place in the deck anymore. I also did drop the Painful Choice or whatever it was. There's so many painful decisions, I think it was. Yeah, those painful, there's so many, I can't really think of the name, but I did drop that one as well because it just seemed to brick me and remove most of my vanillas from the deck. Okay guys, next up we have the best starter in the deck, and basically this is, if you open this card, you can really combo off, and that's going to be Venus, or the Agent of Creation Venus, Venus for short. And Venus basically has the effect where you can pay 500 life points per Mystical Shine Ball and special summon a Mystical Shine Ball, and of course you can only run 3 of the same card, so we have our triple Mystical Shine Ball. Now, I wonder if they'll ever add support for this card, but I was wondering if they were to make another card that's name is treated as Mystical Shine Ball. If so, this deck would become insanely powerful, and also the Agent deck would also get a little bit of a boost from that as well. Also, they are vanillas, so you can use them for Imduke. Now, of course, with the loss of our beloved friend Emerald, we have to find a replacement for him. So, Exodius is the perfect person, or card, to replace our beloved Emerald, who is now gone. Rest in peace, Emerald. But basically, Exodius has sort of the same effect. Emerald can recycle 3, draw 1, whereas Exodius shuffles everything and special summons himself, which I guess it's not too bad because Emerald, it's an even trade either way. Because Emerald, you use 2 monsters to summon them, and you replace it with another card that you draw. But there is a chance involved with that, and you can only recycle 3. Whereas Exodius recycles all of them, meaning all your link monsters, so that you can replenish your extra deck, and you get an extra monster on the field. Rather than using 2 to draw 1, you can use 1 to recycle everything, and then activate Venus's effect even more. Next up, for another one of the cards that spams out monsters and is not really in the World Chalice archetype, is Gofu. Now, Gofu is a really nice starter, but I found him to brick a little bit at 3, especially when you draw into him with your Ningirsu draws. You want to see him in your opening hand or not in your opening hand. He's good, but he's not as good as Venus is. Or as another card that we do run, Rescue Ferret right here. Rescue Ferret's insanely good because it can get you a negation on board by summoning your Recover, which is a Earth level 1 Psychic Tuner, and a Chosen, along with maybe another level 2 if you're using 3 link zones, or you can just use 2 link zones and get that negation on board by summoning your Herald of the Arc Light. So yes. Next up, guys, we're going to go straight into our one-of. So first of all, we do have Recover. Now, I was running this guy at 1 or at 2, and now I'm running it at 1, which I don't know if this is a really good choice, because if you do draw into him, that means you can't summon him off a Ferret or Emergency Teleport. But I don't really like to have him in my hand. I'd rather him be I don't really like to see him in my hand, so I'd rather him be in the deck. So I only run 1. If you do draw into him, he doesn't have a recursion effect, so you can send him with Lee and revive himself. Next up, a few targets for Aurum, because the Aurum can special summon any monster from your graveyard. So right off the bat, our first lockdown card is Krista. Our opponent can't special summon whatsoever. And then another option that you could run is Kumungus. You can send it with a Lee and then Aurum it back. And then, of course, if you do have your Waterfront, well, first of all, if you don't search him off a Waterfront, he's just basically a Kaiju in your hand to Kaiju over your opponent's monsters. But if you do search him with Waterfront, you can Aurum him back, and if your opponent normal or special summons something, you can automatically have that monster's effects negated till the end of the turn, shutting down your opponent's starters. And I feel like that's a really good card, especially because it only removes 2 counters, meaning you can activate it again that turn. So if they do get in first normal summon, negate that, they somehow get another summon, you can negate that monster's effects as well. And last but not least, we do have to have our Brilliant Fusion target. Now, I do have a combo waiting for you guys with this card, so stay tuned for that. Okay, next up, guys, for the Kaiju engine, we have our triple Waterfront. Now, once Waterfront gets you up to 3 counters, you can search a Kaiju monster. So we have our Kumungus right here. And running just 3 of them, I don't feel is good enough. So we do run 1 Terraforming so that we can see this card a little bit more than normal. Now, one thing that was pointed out to me was that running double Waterfront and double Terraforming is not as good as triple Waterfront and single Terraforming, because you can brick on the last Terraforming, and you can also activate multiple Waterfronts in 1 turn, and getting multiple searches if you do want that. We do run only 1 Kaiju currently, but you could boost this up with either Gamma Seal or the other one that summons tokens. I don't have its name currently. But you can get multiple searches off of running more Waterfronts, and although the other one does get less cards or more cards out of your deck, it can brick, and we're trying to reduce the amount of bricks in this deck because there's already way too many. Next up, guys, we have one of the best spells, Sawder's Extenders. This is basically an all-around good spell, unless you draw into Lazuli. But this card is amazing. You can ditch your Lee, you can ditch any of your other light monsters that you want to special summon later. Then you can use Lee to ditch a monster from your hand, say Kumungus, or Archlord Krista, or Rescue Ferret, and then summon it back with Aurum, since we have several different targets for Aurum, which you can switch out with 3 of one of those special kinds. I think the Kaiju one is probably the best one at the moment, because it does get you that double negation, which is probably the best one. But there are other ways to get negations, so yeah, Brilliant Fusion really helps with getting those lockdown boards and unbreakable boards. Now, of course, everybody hates it whenever you draw into the horrible, horrifying mystical shine ball, and in order to turn that shine ball orally into a actually usable card, Venus, we do have Transmodify. I only run 2 because I seem to wreck on 3, because whenever I run 3, I'm just going to draw a Transmodify or a shine ball, and I really want to hit that Transmodify during my Ningirsu draws so that I can add a lead back to hand, special to lead, then go to the Venus, and completely extend to my maximum power, OTKing our opponent, or getting an insane, unbreakable board. Okay, next up we have the one-ofs. We have an Etaliate, a special summon 1 level 3 or lower psychic type, including Recover or Chosen by the World Chalice. We also do have Soul Charge. You probably already know what Soul Charge does, but if you don't, you don't pay yet. You special summon monsters from your graveyard, and then you pay 1,000 for each one you did summon. Now, do beware, this does still resolve, even if it goes past your life point count, so you can kill yourself with it, especially after using Venus to use more life points, so do beware when that's happening. I saw one video, a guy did it to himself. Absolutely hilarious. But don't let that happen to you. Probably the only other target than another World Chalice for World Legacy World Chalice's graveyard effect is World Legacy's Heart, which is a really good recycle card for the next turn after you do your combos and stuff, because sometimes after using your combos you run out of materials, and this is basically an easy +1 from your graveyard. That's not all we do. We're going to finish this off with the Foolish Burial. You can ditch your Lee and send 1 monster from your hand to the grave, or you can send 1 monster from your deck to the grave, summon it back with Aurum later on. And just to end it off, guys, for the traps, we do run double Solemn Strike. Solemn Strikes is a really meta card right now. I would put this up to 3 if I didn't draw into it so dang much. Man, I just draw into this card way too many times, and I don't really like it, so I only run it at 2. Okay, first up in the extra deck, we do run 1 Ningirsu. Do keep in mind, guys, we do not have any firewalls, but you can incorporate those cards in if you want to, along with a few changes in the extra deck, because what we're basically going for is a Ningirsu and then Aurum play, where we get out our Ningirsu, draw 3, and then Aurum back a lockout card, so that we can have a pretty established field. We can send 1 monster from both sides of the field to the grave, and then we also have negation. So basically, if we have a Humongous out, they do anything, negate it for till the end of the turn, and then you can send it to the graveyard with Ningirsu, basically completely locking out your opponent, and then OTKing them the next turn. Also, Ningirsu does have 2 effects, which is you can draw cards equal to the number of World Chalice monsters it points to, and then you can also send 1 monster or 1 card from each player's field to the graveyard. Most of the time that target is going to be Brilliant Fusion. It does need 2 Link monsters to summon, but that's not really a setback since you can just turn your normal monsters into Link monsters, and that may actually help you by sending maybe a Guard Dragon to grave, summoning back in Vanilla, going Vanilla into Link 1, and then extending from there. Next up, guys, we have the main card of the deck. Because we depend so heavily on this card, we do run 2 of them in our extra deck. I would actually bring this up to 3, because if our opponent does get rid of all of these, we're basically locked out from the entire game if they know what kind of build we're playing. Don't let your opponent know what build you're playing, because then they can just Ghost Ash, Reaper, whatever. One of those, the one that banishes them from your extra deck. You do not want that to happen. It's very bad. But let's get into the next card. Next up, we do have probably the best card in the deck, in my opinion, other than Aurum for this build, and that is Eve. Eve protects the monsters it points to, and protects itself if something is pointing to it, allowing you to go into an Eve lock, where if you have 2 Eves pointing towards each other, they can't be destroyed or targeted by card effects or battle. So that, well, they can be targeted by battle, they can't be destroyed by battle, but they cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by battle. Meaning that you can basically have a lock where the Eves protect each other, and then you can summon a monster on each side, and then Eve protects, one of the Eves will protect one of the monsters, and even if you do discard send 1 Eve, she'll have the other one to protect the other monster. So it's really nice, and it does protect your board against field wipes, because then themselves will not get destroyed, so they can send itself to protect your other monsters. Next up, we have a card that I was thinking about bringing to 3, but I just never do it, and it seems to work completely fine, and that is M-Duke. We never really go into the second M-Duke, but when we do, we usually need the 3rd one, which is really annoying, but it happens a lot. Next up, guys, we're just going to go ahead and show you all of our generic link monsters. Our replacement for Fireball, a little bit cheaper, a little bit more powerful for attack power. We have our Topological Bomber. He's not completely generic. You do need to use effect monsters, but he's basically generic enough for you to play him. His first effect is if he attacks if a monster special summoned to a zone this card points to, wipe all of the main monster zones. Now, that's a pretty good effect, and if you do summon him in a linked zone up top, if that's the only thing you can do, it kind of locks your opponent out of that zone unless they use their first normal summon there, which does suck a lot. He's also got a secondary effect where if he does attack a monster after damage calculation, you do get to burn your opponent for the same amount of attack as that monster's original attack, which does mean that you can crash him into a 4K. Your opponent still takes 4K after the battle. Now, if you take 1K, your opponent takes 4K, that can basically finish games, and that's why this card is probably one of my favorite cards in the deck for finishing off people. I cut it too early. Okay, next up we have our completely generic cards. Guy Saber, any 3 monsters, and Proxy Dragon, any 2 monsters. Now, do beware, Guy Saber cannot go into Topologic Bomber Dragon because he is a non-effect monster, so do keep your mind on that. Proxy Dragon really allows you to use some other combos that were less viable. Sorry guys, hit the camera there. That were a lot less viable before you were able to use it. And for the last 2, another non-completely generic Link Spider, you can use a normal monster only, kind of the opposite of Topologic Bomber. We have the spectrum of generics right here from effect to non-effect. But he does have another effect where you can special summon more vanillas from the top of to the zone it points to. And I forgot to mention Proxy Dragon also has an effect where if a monster on the field will be destroyed, you can destroy one monster this card points to instead. Okay, next up, guys, just to end off this profile, guys, we have our negation that we use our recover for, and then of course our Seraph Knight so that we can resolve Brilliant Fusion. Okay guys, that is it for the video. I really hope you like it. I'm not going to drag this on too long, but don't forget to click that like button and do subscribe if you want to, and don't forget to check out a few of my other videos for more advice on this deck, since this deck has gone through a lot on my channel. I think I do have a test hands of one of my older builds. Please tell me in the comments if you want to see test hands of this build to see if it's viable for you to play. Thank you guys for watching this time, and see you next time.